Hello. I just wanted to come in with a quick inspiration that occurred to me today. That I hope could be of value to someone. And this is loosely a little bit tied to my previous installment, which I think was my fourth installment, discussing the group dynamics of conflict. I'm using conflict as a euphemism for violence, but just some of the awesome properties that emerge when we come together as human beings in groups. But I want to take this video even a step further and drawing it back a step from groups and talking about friendship. And because I think that friendship is a form of this group dynamic that happens with people. But then friendship might be the most intimate and direct form and expression of that group dynamic that I think has sheltered us from both ourselves, other people, and nature in evolutionary terms to this day. But then I think that friendship is almost like if group dynamics are the lifeboat that carries us through life, generally speaking, friendship might be the more when that light is shining directly upon you, specifically in fashioning who you are. You'll notice many times. I notice with boys, maybe a little bit more with girls, but especially with boys. I say boys and girls have best friends, different best friend sets at different points of their childhood. Like maybe like a friend that's very strong in elementary, and then another one in middle school, and another one, and so forth. And it could be the same the whole time, but I think they kind of move around a little bit. And I wanted to point out that if you think about your true friends growing up, I mean the ones that impacted you fundamentally and profoundly. I think when I go so far as to say a real friend, I think that those are the ones who they may have took up for you at one point, where um, you may have been victimized or intimidated unjustly, and they are the ones that they came to your defense publicly, or at least when you came off that conflict, they sheltered you and gave you support socially and emotionally. If you think about the real ones who touched your life. And I also made a video about something discussing counterintuitive processes around us, where a lot of times things that the way that our reality unfolds in an illogical format, which is it is not illogical. It is logical, yet it transcends and goes beyond our understanding of logic. So it is illogical. But I noticed that I wanted to share a story where sometimes, I think sometimes you can have an appreciation for, and maybe even to a certain degree love someone that you don't have direct dealings with, just by, especially in the digital space, but just by, I think that might have been true in former times, like with like people falling in love with figures in media. And then now with the digital space, you can get more of a grasp of who someone is without having been introduced to that person. But I just want to say that when you have a strong respect, liking, or appreciation for someone, with whatever format of relationship you do or don't have with that person, I think that can still be significant. And I remember I was where I wanted to go with this is that I was working a job. My first, it was actually my first professional role. The first role that I had that required the obtaining of and sustaining of a professional license. And I had a certain degree. It was challenging to obtain that license, and then I had a certain degree of confidence that was forming within myself, having seen myself obtain the license and function with it. But I was still an upstart, even though I had experience doing the type of work at a lower degree without the license. Having the license was very confidence forming. And this beautiful woman came into the job just behind me. I had a I was a I had a random inspiration that took me I live in a spread out metropolitan area, and it took me to a far remote part of the metropolitan area, and I saw the opportunity and ran with it. So I had the initiative on my side, and then this beautiful person, walked into the job just a little bit behind me, and they were a I later discovered that they were I think they may have been like what you would call working homeless, where you have you have a strong career with a strong income, but because of the way that things are so out of sight these days in terms of inflation, sometimes very productive, responsible people actually can't swing accommodations for living, as egregious as that sounds, just in the reality that we are. And then on top of this, the person was a single parent, or I'm sorry, I don't know if it's single, but just a parent with multiple children that they would bring to the job out of necessity at times. And I just thought this was one of the most beautiful people I had ever seen as a person, both aesthetically, but just going deeper, just the essence of that person. I've made posts in another forum that I think that sometimes, I don't know if the same is true for females, but for men, I think that in nature, we were we in hit. I sometimes I just I reason in evolutionary terms, and I think that a male or men roving an environment in nature in the past could likely come upon another creature or other human beings that they were not associated with, and they would have to quickly make an instinctual assessment of where that person stood between them, and if they would negotiate peace or conflict from that point. And I think that the accuracy of that estimation could play out vitally, and be the difference between demise and success. And so I think that as part of that, men have a knack for grasping the bearing and the intention of another person, and I'd go so far as to say the essence of another person, without having a lot of direct interaction. And I think that's some of the propensity of men for violence and conflict with strangers, but then also the ability to shake hands after a bout, and to kind of be removed from their to be uh, um, disaffected with their own, like to be able to engage with people and not get to have a very strong interaction with the person, both positive and negative, and then to be able to move on from that interaction as quickly, both with men and women. And so as a consequence of that, I think that sometimes us men have a knack for grasping the essence of another person, but also identifying with our assessment or being repulsed by our assessment. If just some of the reactions we have to people without a lot of formal contact. So that's just a very verbose way of saying that I had a deep appreciation for this person without knowing them very well. And then one time, after several months of working together, an older person on the job made some very distasteful comments behind the person's back, publicly, with regard to the amount of children that they had, that they would sometimes bring on the job. And that just really that one, it was so it was so distasteful. It was almost appalling for them to make that type of statement. And I've with some maturity in life, I've realized that as adults, for me particularly as men, it's usually never to our advantage to show our hand out of emotion, whether or it's usually never it's never to our advantage to show our hand, whether in terms of romance or conflict. There's something to be gained by holding our peace and watching things play out, and keeping the initiative by concealing where we stand on something. But at the same time, this is kind of like a challenge, because to let a comment like that ride when it's being stated publicly, and I was sitting so close to the person as to appear as though I was associating with or engaged in the conversation, even though I wasn't speaking. And so there's such a thing as I remember when I was young in the South, someone made a joke about another student I was with, um, uh, and then comparing them uh, they just made a joke, and then another student said something about like not having anything to do with the joke, and he said, "Yeah, but you co-signed it." And I think that sometimes our what we don't do can be as much of an action as what we do. So by remaining silent, it's almost like co-signing it, and then as an appearance, it almost seems like you're bantering with that person. So for the amount of esteem and appreciation that I had for this person, just to be sitting next to this person that was insulting them was it was just it was a very challenging and uninspirational experience. But I just wanted to say that maybe in historically in evolutionary terms and to this day, if you really appreciate a person, past we all can like joke and banter with people and have frenemies and all those kind of sophisticated friendships, but when you really respect a person and you really and you even I would say love a person, and then they are attacked, whether directly or in their absence, I think that might be actually an opportunity for friendship and to take up for that person. And I don't mean this in terms of doing anything ugly or distasteful yourself, but I just mean that I think sometimes when we really care about when we really are inclined towards another person to a degree where we bear genuine friendship for that person in ourselves, an opportunity may transpire to stick up for that person in a fundamental and unique way, and that might be the very sealing and um, that might be the very consecration of your friendship towards that person, is that stance that you took with them. So I just wanted to say, recognize that when you know when you respect a person and when you love a person, and you know when they're being when someone um, is not being forthright with them, or maybe doesn't understand them. And I just want to say that that might be an opportunity to stand up for that to form a friendship with that person, and that might just be an evolutionary feature of us, where these circumstances of sticking up for one another is part of how we bond and grow as human beings, both in groups and in a more intimate setting like one-on-one with friendship. So just recognizing that and taking up for the people that we love, but doing so if we can do it in a respectful, if we can retain respect and mature bearing about ourselves, then it can be a learning process for all people involved, and we can all be better and grow from it if we handle ourselves upright. So I just want to say, keep the faith, whatever faith means to you, and be willing to support, take up for, or at least be willing to to let it be known how you feel about a person toward in their support when appropriate, if you really care about that person and love that person. Peace. And this is my belated response to taking up for that person who I still love. Peace.